While a little beyond the basic scatter graph, really this graph is a basic scatter graph. However, it's looking at the differences between two time frames. So we have the same vendor data in here that was put in from a value and volume perspective, but now we're looking at the differences between 2 years in that data. So as we go into Excel, what we've done is we've copied the amount 1 and amount 2 columns in this way, but what we need to do over on the right is create a difference column. If I double click on that, you can see that I'm minusing the year 1, which I'm considering to be the year most current, less last year, year 2, which is E4. And then that was copied down the entire length of the data. So that gives me an amount difference. My count difference is, again, year 1 minus year 2, as you can see here in that count difference. And once I have both of those set, I can create a scatter graph by highlighting that data, saying Insert, Scatter, and then selecting that scatter graph. And when I do, I create this scatter difference chart. I'm only scatter graphing in this case 2 data points, invoice amount and count difference, and they're both a difference. So in looking at this chart, what you can start to see very quickly is while there are 5,726 vendors, you can very quickly see the outliers that pop out of that scatter graph. When we look at a scatter graph from a difference point of view, you have 4 different quadrants that you could be in, but I like to look at it from 4 different perspectives. We have ones that are listed as high dollar change with low count, and that is a very strange outlier that would happen. It's like a one-time adjustment. Number 2s are actually, they make a lot of sense because they are at the high and low end, yet they are relative. So as things go up in volume, so do value. Things go down in volume, so do value, and that makes sense. Number 3 doesn't make a lot of sense because we're saying as time or volume goes up, the actual value goes down, or as the volume goes down, the value goes up. Last but not least, you could maybe see some inefficiency or just some interesting behavior where in the 4 set, you actually are looking for lots of activity that might be inefficient. It could be a way that they're processing data that's leading to inefficiencies. So heading back into Excel, we can start to highlight some of these points so that we can go back into the scatter data and into this scatter graph here and look for those differences. So here is one, $58 million. Shouldn't be that hard to find. However, over on the left-hand side, what's interesting here is that we can actually see that we have more activity, 1,466 more invoices, yet we have $24 million less of activity. Just an odd statement to make. There doesn't seem to be a huge inefficiency problem, or we would see more items here that have very little value but lots of activity. Don't seem to have a whole lot of that going on. And I think, again, just some relative large-sized items that are trending. I mean, you have 1,500 more invoices and you have $15 million more. It kind of makes sense. Let's take a look at that vendor, but it does have some relative sense to what is happening there. Again, the scatter data, we're looking at differences, which then show up here, and we can look at it into that 4-quadrant type analysis.